In the year 49 BC, Julius Caesar stood on the banks of a small river in northern Italy. The river was called the Rubicon. By law, no general was allowed to cross it with an army. To do so was an act of treason. It was a declaration of war against the state, but Caesar crossed it anyway. And in that moment, the Roman Republic didn't die immediately, but the rules that held it together died. From that day forward, power was no longer decided by laws or senates. It was decided by raw force. I am telling you this story because America has just crossed its own Rubicon. It didn't happen with an army marching on Washington. It happened with a 98-page document filed in a courthouse in Georgia. The decision to charge a former president of the United States under the RICO Act, the Racketeer, Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act. This is not just another legal headline. This is a structural break in the American timeline. For 250 years, we have had an unwritten rule in this country. We do not use the criminal justice system to settle political disputes. We defeat opponents at the ballot box. We do not put them in prison. That rule is the only thing separating a republic from a banana republic. And this week, that rule was erased. I want to be very clear about what we are discussing today. This is not a defense of Donald Trump's actions. This is a defense of the system that allows us to survive him or to survive anyone else. Because once you turn the code of law into a weapon of war, you cannot unweaponize it. You have started a fire that will burn long after this election is over. Welcome to the scorched earth scenario. The weaponization of law. Let's look at the weapon itself, RICO. It is a four-letter word that carries a specific weight in American culture. It was passed by Congress in 1974, a very specific purpose: to fight the Mafia, to take down men like John Gotti and the 5 families of New York. Before RICO, it was hard to catch the boss. The boss didn't pull the trigger. The boss didn't drive the getaway car. The boss just gave orders, often in code. So RICO was created to allow prosecutors to connect the dots. To say that if you are part of an organization that commits crimes, you are guilty of the crimes too, even if you never touched the gun. It is a powerful tool. Perhaps the most powerful tool in the federal arsenal. But it was designed to be used against criminals who operate outside the law, men who swore blood oaths in basements. It was never, ever intended to be used against the executive branch of the United States government. By applying RICO to a contested election, prosecutors are doing something dangerous. They are criminalizing politics. Think about the implications of this legal theory. If challenging an election result is a conspiracy to defraud the state, then nearly every losing candidate in modern history is a criminal. Al Gore challenged the 2000 election for 37 days. Was that a racketeering enterprise? Stacey Abrams refused to concede the Georgia governor's race for years. Was that a criminal conspiracy? Democrats in Congress objected to the certification of Donald Trump's victory in 2017. Were they members of a crime family? Under the standard being applied today, the answer could be yes, and that is why this is so terrifying. The law relies on precision, but this indictment relies on expansion. It takes normal political activities, making phone calls, holding meetings, organizing alternate slates of electors, and it redefines them as acts of racketeering. It blurs the line between a bad political strategy and a felony. And when that line is blurred, no one is safe, because every politician pushes the envelope. Every campaign operates in the gray zone. If we decide that the gray zone is now a prison zone, then we don't have a democracy anymore. We have a police state where the party in power decides who is allowed to run against them. The warlord of the new era. Now, nature abhors a vacuum, and when the legitimacy of the state collapses, other powers rise to fill the void. Enter Elon Musk. In a normal era, a tech CEO would stay quiet during a moment like this. He would issue a vague statement about respecting the process. He would worry about his stock price. But we are not in a normal era. We are in a warlord era. I don't use that term lightly. In history, when central empires crumble, powerful individuals with their own resources and their own armies step in. Musk doesn't have a private army of soldiers. He has something more effective. He has a private army of satellites. And he has a private public square called X. Musk's reaction to the indictment was not just commentary. It was a signal. By releasing the Twitter files months ago, he laid the groundwork for this specific argument. He showed the world that the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the intelligence agencies were not neutral referees. They were active players in the game. They pressured platforms to censor stories. They flagged content they didn't like. They put their thumb on the scale. So when Musk attacks this new indictment as weaponization, he is not just speculating. He is citing his own evidence. He is telling the public, I have seen their emails. I know how they operate. This is a devastating blow to the state's credibility. The state relies on the illusion of impartiality. It needs you to believe that Lady Justice is blind. But Musk is ripping the blindfold off. He is showing you that Lady Justice is peaking, and that she has a partisan preference. This creates a dangerous dynamic. You have the state on one side, armed with subpoenas and jails, and you have a non-state actor on the other side, armed with algorithms and capital. In the past, the state always won. The government could crush any individual, but Musk represents a new class of power that is too big to crush. He controls the internet infrastructure, Starlink. He controls the space program, SpaceX. He controls the electric vehicle market, Tesla. And he controls the flow of political information, X. He is effectively a sovereign power. And he has chosen to align that power against the prosecution. This validates the feeling of millions of Americans. They feel that the system is broken. And when they see the richest man in the world agreeing with them, it doesn't make them back down. It makes them double down. Mutually assured destruction. This brings us to the future. And it is a dark future. Because the problem with breaking a norm is that you set a precedent. And precedents are weapons that anyone can pick up. The Democrats have picked up the RICO weapon today. But political power is a pendulum. It always swings back. What happens when it does? Imagine a scenario where Donald Trump wins in 2024, or any Republican wins in 2028. Do you think they will return to the old rules? Do you think they will say, let's be the better men and move on? History says no. History says they will look at the tools on the table and use them. If a local prosecutor in Georgia can indict a former Republican president, then a local prosecutor in Texas can indict a former Democratic president. They can find a reason. Maybe it's the border crisis. Charge it as criminal negligence or a conspiracy to violate immigration laws. Maybe it's foreign business dealings. Charge it as a RICO enterprise involving the family. So the legal theory has been established. The Rubicon has been crossed. We are entering a cycle of mutually assured destruction. In the Cold War, this term meant that if one side launched a nuke, the other side would launch everything they had, and both sides would die. In politics, it means the total criminalization of the opposition. Every time power changes hands, the losing side goes to jail, or spends their remaining years bankrupting themselves in court. This is not how America works. This is how Brazil works. This is how Pakistan works. This is how the Roman Republic ended. When the Senate tried to prosecute Caesar, he didn't submit. He didn't hire a lawyer. He marched on Rome because he knew that losing meant death or political extinction. By raising the stakes to the level of prison time, the Department of Justice has removed the option of a graceful exit. They have backed the opposition into a corner. And a cornered animal does not negotiate. It fights to the death. We can see this fight in the financial numbers. After the conviction in New York, the Trump campaign raised $53 million in 24 hours. $53 million. That is not just fundraising. That is a revolt. that is millions of people voting with their wallets. They are saying, "We see what you are doing, and we are paying for the defense." This money is the fuel for the scorched earth strategy. It guarantees that the fight will not end quietly. It will be loud, it will be expensive, and it will tear the fabric of the country apart. The tragedy of the system. The tragedy of this moment is that we have forgotten why the system exists. The Founding Fathers were not naive. They knew that men were ambitious. They knew that factions would fight for power. So they built a system designed to contain that conflict, to channel it into elections, debates, and votes. They built a system where the loser accepts defeat, because they know they will live to fight another day. They know they won't be jailed. They know their property won't be seized. That safety of the loser is the bedrock of stability, and we are taking a sledgehammer to it. By using RICO, a law designed for the worst criminals in society, against a political leader, we are telling half the country that their political choices are illegitimate. We are telling them that their movement is a criminal enterprise. You cannot govern a people you have criminalized. You can only rule them. And there is a big difference between governing and ruling. Governing requires consent. Ruling requires force. We are moving from an era of consent to an era of force. The courtroom is no longer a place of justice. It is a battlefield. The judge is no longer a referee. He is a combatant. The law is no longer a shield. It is a sword. And in a war like this, there are no winners. Even if the prosecution gets a conviction, what have they won? They will have convicted a man, but they will have martyred a movement. They will have saved the rule of law on paper, but they will have destroyed the trust that gives the law its power. The point of no return. I want to leave you with a thought from history. Empires do not usually die from invasion. They die from suicide. They die when the internal conflict becomes so toxic that the people stop believing in the shared project. They stop seeing each other as countrymen and start seeing each other as enemies who must be destroyed. We are standing on that precipice right now. The RICO indictment is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a new, darker chapter. A chapter where politics is war by other means, where the goal is not to win an election, but to eliminate the opposition. We have crossed the river. The water is behind us, and the road ahead is burning. Resonance point, so I have to ask you the question that no one in Washington wants to answer. Once we turn our courtrooms into battlefields, can we ever turn them back into halls of justice? Or have we broken the machine forever? Is this the moment we lost the republic? I want to hear your thoughts. Not the talking points you hear on TV, but what you actually feel about the future of this country. Tell me in the comments. And if you want to understand what a dictatorship actually looks like in the modern age, you need to watch my next video on the American Caesar. We explore who might rise from the ashes of this system. It might not be who you think. Click here to watch.